The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 3068. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 3068, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to elections, regulating access to certain lists of voter data related to the presidential nomination primary.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, the author of the bill, Representative Dean, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members. House File 3068 is response to what we did back in 2016. I know that many of you were here when we voted to change our presidential nomination process from a presidential straw ballot at caucuses into a presidential national primary. And we did that primarily because in 2016, we had many people standing out in the cold in order to go and voice their preference within both parties. This wasn't a Republican issue. This wasn't a Democratic issue. This was an issue that we had developed a system, and the excitement around the presidential straw poll on caucus night was very, very large. And as a result of that, we passed a presidential national primary law. And what we did was, and I know that not everybody here voted for that, some of those folks that were here in 2016, but what we ultimately did is we made it so that when individuals would vote in that presidential national primary, in which the state would actually conduct the election, we made it so that they would have to select a particular ballot for a particular party and then vote that way. And many of you have probably heard from your constituents, I've heard from many of my constituents about their concern. Because we learned eventually that the national parties had what's called a recordation requirement. And that means an official record of who voted and what party they voted for. That caused a lot of concerns for a lot of people. And in last year, we also learned that there was some additions made to that law that made it so that the information of who voted for what party would actually go to all the major parties. I think that most of us, when we voted back in 2016, we made the assumption that that information would only go to the party in which we voted for. But last year, in closing of conference committee reports, it was clarified that actually that information would go to everybody. So this bill really does three main things. One is it requires the information that is collected through the voting process with the Secretary of State's office to actually provide that information to the political parties, those individuals and the parties from which they chose to vote. The second thing this bill does is it actually clarifies what the parties can actually do with that information. And that's a critical thing because without this bill, in essence, the party can do whatever they want with that information. And I don't know about you folks, but I've been out knocking doors, and when you ask people which party they voted for, they sort of look at you like, well, that's private. I'm not going to tell you who I vote for. I mean, we've all seen it, probably both sides. So this was in response to that. In addition to that, for those individuals that are very concerned about their data and their party affiliation being available to the parties and the opportunity that that may be misused, we also included in here a clause that allows those individuals to opt out of their data being collected. In other words, you can sign a form that will say that your information from the Secretary of State will not be included in the data set that will go to the parties. And that's in essence what this bill is doing. It's trying to solve that problem that when we created the presidential national primaries, there were some things that allowed that data to not be as secure as I think most voters would want that data to be. So I believe that there's probably some amendments to this, and Madam Speaker, we can bring them up at this point.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Dean moves to amend House File Number 3068, the first engrossment, as follows, and the amendment is coded A3.
Representative Dean, to your A3 amendment.
Madam Speaker and members, as I previously mentioned, we passed in law last year that the information would be available for all parties on how all parties, who those voters were in the presidential national primary. And what this does is it actually makes it so that the information of you voting in a particular party, in other words, the ballot that you asked for, will only go to that party. It won't go to all the parties. And I think that's what most of us thought we were voting on back in 2016. So it corrects that. In addition, it has a provision that makes the major parties liable in the event that they don't protect the data. In the original bill, there's a provision that calls out the data privacy sections 1308 and 1309. And that actually speaks to the issue is, do the parties willingly now allow that information to be made public or out into the sphere? And what this does, it actually adds some liability to them, and it lowers that threshold of being willful to actually include just general neglect if they are not doing the job of protecting their data. So it cleans up a couple things that I think the original bill 3068 had done, and I would just ask all members to support the A3 amendment.
Any discussion to the A3 amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Scott moves to amend House File Number 3068, the first engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded DE1.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott, to the DE1.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Dean, thanks for hearing the public's concerns and trying to do something to fix this issue with the presidential primary and people's voter preferences being recorded. Members, I introduced a bill too. This is basically my bill, this amendment is. What my bill will do is it says you cannot collect that data going forward of people's party preferences, and for anything that has been collected to this point through absentee voting or through early voting will have to be purged by the county. Members, this bill, when we passed it in 2016, Representative Garofalo offered an amendment that would basically do this, and I voted in favor of that, and that did fail. But members, this is an issue where we've got to listen to the public, and the public is saying, I don't want anybody recording my ballot preference. And so I'll speak to that in closing arguments, but that's basically what this amendment does. Again, it just says you're not going to collect party preference, or you're not even going to ask for what that is, and anything that's been collected so far will be purged. Thank you, and I encourage a green vote. And a roll call, please, Madam.
Representative Scott requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the DE1. Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. You know, while I understand what your bill does, one of the things the major parties actually require is that they have this information. And I think that us spending $12 million as a state to conduct this election and then have the reason that we've conducted this election, which is in the process of selecting a party's nomination, I think we're not doing what we thought we were doing. And that was, we're helping Minnesota voters, those individuals who go to support their particular candidate, to actually be seated as part of their delegate convention. And I understand that in your situation, There's very little to risk. I think most of us know who the nominee is probably going to be for the Republican Party, but that wasn't the case in 2016. You know, I mean, looking back at 2016, who won the straw ballot in the state of Minnesota? It was Marco Rubio. And I think that, you know, just because you don't have a contested race in your nomination today shouldn't be the reason of saying that your party doesn't matter, and we don't really care if you all get seats at your district convention, at the national convention for nominating your particular candidate. But I think there are many Minnesotans that have voted, and I think there are many Minnesotans who want their voice heard in that process. And I would say that if we did this, it would almost negate why we did a presidential national primary. So I would just request that voters vote no on this amendment.
Any further discussion to the DE1? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. Pearson votes aye. There being 30, O'Driscoll votes aye. There being 35 ayes and 90 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Munson moves to amend House File Number 3068, the first one Grossman as amended. The amendment is coded A20-0648.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Munson, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to Representative Dean. I appreciate the attempt to improve this presidential primary, and I know that you've been out door knocking because I've seen you around my neighborhood. This is really about campaigning. This whole presidential primary is about campaigns for both parties. And it's no wonder why this bill was passed, because all the elected officials would love to know where all the Republicans and Democrats are so they can focus their campaigns and to run their campaigns more efficiently. I wasn't here to vote for the bill. I wasn't even here to vote for the bill that was passed the next year to actually make the data not public. But people are really upset about the possibility of the data leaking and the parties sharing data with unions or everybody else that they work with. The bottom line for me is that this is a $12 to $15 million taxpayer-funded massive data collection for two private entities. These are private parties trying to choose who they want to put forward as their candidate. And we had caucuses that got a little unruly in 2016. And Representative Dean, Bernie Sanders was the candidate too. Remember that? It wasn't just Marco Rubio. But those caucuses were unruly. And part of the reason why the caucuses were so hard to manage in 2016 is because we were all volunteers running those caucuses. This presidential primary is going to cost between $12 and $15 million and hire 40,000 people to work at the elections. If the parties would put 10% of that cost into running caucuses, we would have actually had order. The Republican caucuses didn't even allow people to just come and vote and leave for the straw poll. We required them to sit through the whole hour and a half, 2 hours long of caucusing. People were frustrated, yes. But this is a private election for private entities. It should not be put on the backs of taxpayers. I'm concerned that you also mentioned you didn't want to have all parties get the data of people who elected. I mean, you said you were surprised in 2016 because you thought only your party would get the data on if you selected their party as the ballot. Well, there's really only two parties, so pretty obvious to figure out what the other party was. But there's a concern now that there's four parties. You know, and the two pot parties haven't spent a dime's bag worth of money improving their parties, and all of a sudden they're going to get $15 million of party data. Yeah, I could see you'd be a little concerned on your side of the aisle, and you want to shut those other two parties out. But the bottom line, this is about taxpayers having to fund this. And it's wrong to do that. It also creates a system where if you want to run for president, you can't go to the Secretary of State's office and pay $500 or $100 to get on the ballot. You're actually, in law, telling two individuals that work for private entities that are not government employees that they have the sole discretion of who appears on the ballot. In the state of Iowa, the party chairs get to charge $300,000 to each of the presidential campaigns to be on the straw poll. Well, that's fine. The straw poll is run by private entities. They can do whatever they want. But here we have a taxpayer-funded election where you're allowing the party chairs of each of the parties to sell ballot access to campaigns, to raise millions of dollars, again, at taxpayer expense. So this amendment, members, gets rid of the presidential primary. It goes back to a private election run by the private entities that are benefiting from this data. So this amendment is for the taxpayers of Minnesota. And members, I want to see how many members in here would support a roll call in actually going back to the caucuses. Madam Chair, I'd like to ask for a roll call.
Representative Munson requests a roll call.
Yep.
There are not 15 hands, Representative Munson.
And that's how many members want the taxpayers to pay for a taxpayer-funded data collection effort for two private entities. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Munson yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Daudt.
Thanks. Representative Munson, what's the enactment date of your amendment? When does this go into effect? Is this going to basically, my question is this, does this basically cancel out the current primary? Because the way I read this, this takes place for future primaries, but this primary is going to go forward right now. And I don't see an enactment date, and according to Minnesota statute, without an enactment date, this would enact on August 1st, which means this primary would happen and the data would be shared without any protections from this bill. This deletes all the language in this bill, allows a primary to happen this year because the enactment date is after August 1st, or at August 1st, after the primary. And it would happen with no protections of the data, according to your amendment. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Representative Munson.
Thank you, Representative Daudt. It is immediately enacted, and the data does not include the party choice of any voter who voted in the presidential nomination primary, as seen in line 7 and 1.7 and 1.8 as it's stricken.
Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If Representative Munson would yield for another question.
He will yield. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Munson, if you can point me to the enactment language, I read through the amendment. I cannot see enactment language that tells me when this would go into effect. And according to Minnesota Statute 645.02, without enactment language, this enacts on August 1st. So if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding.
Representative Munson.
Madam Speaker, I don't see the enactment date on here as it came back from the reviser.
Further discussion to the A2648 amendment. Representative Daudt, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I'm not sure this amendment does what Representative Munson is intending or even what he said. What this amendment does is it deletes everything in this bill. It does then go through statute and delete any references to a presidential primary. So we would not have a presidential primary in the future. But this one that we're currently in right now, we've already been voting. Early voting opened up probably a month ago. This one would still happen, and it would not happen with any protections on the data at all. So they would be shared just the way current law is right now. And then this amendment would enact on August 1st of this year, after this primary is concluded and after that data had been shared with the parties. So I'm not sure this does what you described, Representative Munson, and I wouldn't support this.
Any further discussion to the amendment? Representative Dean, and then Representative Munson, I understand you'd like to close. Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I understand what's happening here, and for everybody to know, last night was our precinct caucuses. You know, and you know, if the intent of yours was to say we wouldn't have a primary on March 3rd, a presidential national primary, you in essence saying Minnesota did not participate in this national effort to try to select who our nominee is. And that one is troubling. But just as a reminder, we moved away from a caucus process for presidential national primary because if you don't have Tuesday evening open on your schedule on that date in which the precinct caucuses take place, you're not able to participate in this process of selecting the nominees on who that will be for our national presidential candidates. So we made this move to also make it so that the process of a presidential national primary would be much, much more inclusive of all of the people in Minnesota and not just those individuals who had that Tuesday night free in February. So I would hope that members would vote no on this amendment, and thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill is for the presidential primary in 2024. This ends the presidential primary. It wasn't intended to adjust what's going on for this year. We're still going to go forward with the presidential primary. And to Representative Dean's point about not having the day off to go caucus, we have in law that your employer is required to give you time to go to caucus. So this wasn't a good caucus this year because we had a presidential primary. There was a lot of confusion out there and people wondering even if they should go to caucus. But the point being, it's run for the benefit of two private entities and shouldn't be put on the backs of taxpayers to pay for it. And Madam Speaker, since there's concern about this being an issue of enactment, I will withdraw this amendment. So, thank you.
Representative Munson withdraws the amendment. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Scott moves to amend House File Number 3068, the first engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A5.
Representative Scott, two-year amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. What this amendment would do is something that we commonly do in our committee when it comes to data practices issues, and that is it would require an audit trail to be created whenever the whenever the data is being shared. And then this also puts a belt and suspenders on and says that the Office of the Legislative Auditor will come in to the Secretary of State's office and they will do an audit to assure that the information in the case of Representative Dean's bill is transmitted, if you will, to each of the party's designees in a lawful manner and in a correct manner and a secure manner. And I would ask for your support and ask for a roll call.
Representative Scott requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the amendment. Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I would rise to speak in opposition to this, although I understand the intent. When this information becomes part of that audit trail, that also then opens that information up to possible public exposure of that information. And we know that all of us already, the data that's collected says which elections we vote in, but it doesn't say which party we voted for. And my concern with this audit trail is part of that process will actually expose what the ballot that was selected by that individual in doing this audit trail that ultimately then could be out in the public realm. So I would ask members to not support this amendment.
Further discussion to the amendment. The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Chair Dean. If your concern with an audit trail is going to produce information that you don't want to have publicly available, well, we can adjust as part of an audit trail those elements that are captured and saved in the audit trail. So typically when it comes to an audit trail, when you're accessing information, is the date, time, stamp, who performed the action, what action they performed. I find it very hard to believe, Madam Speaker, that an audit trail would contain an element that designates which party ballot was selected. So, Madam Speaker and members, if that's the reason to vote against this, then as somebody who has spent years, over a decade, analyzing audit trails, sifting through information, I can tell you with 100% confidence that we can alleviate that concern. So if that's your concern, have the confidence that you can vote green to this amendment and protect the information that's required. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Lucero, for your knowledgeable response to the objection that Representative Dean raised. And Representative Dean, I was really hoping this would be a friendly amendment because we put audit trails on almost everything that has to do with data, especially something of this nature. And I don't know if you're getting confused with on line 1.10, 1.19, and 1.10, where it says data contained in the audit trail are public to the extent that the data are not otherwise classified by law. Would Representative Dean yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Dean, in your bill, how is the data classified that's being collected?
Representative Dean.
Madam Speaker, my classification of data is relative to sections 13.08 and 13.09. This is not data that is, in essence, public data. And when I look at, your amendment here, the Secretary of State already goes through an extensive process on documenting what they do with data. The SVRS system has an incredible amount of security. So these are things that are already in place. And I think it's unclear how this data in audit trail must be classified, and does it need to include what is changed and entered in the voter's record? There's just some ambiguity within this, and that's what concerns me.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I don't see any ambiguity at all. An audit trail is an audit trail. It's not hard to understand what an audit trail does. And just to clarify, the data that you have in your bill, it is classified as private, and this would not change that. So I really don't see what you're getting at, to be real honest here. But members, again, I would encourage a green vote. We need to make doubly, triply sure, first of all, that people in this state are not real happy about this data being collected in the first place. And so let's make sure that no one is being nefarious in any way with the data. It's a simple audit trail. It won't cost a single thing. Legislative auditor can come over. It won't take their team very long to determine that the information was or was not transferred in a lawful fashion and in a secure fashion. So I think this is, I don't know, I think your argument is making a mountain out of a molehill. Well, probably not even a molehill, because I don't think anything exists. But again, members, I encourage a green vote. Thank you.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Scott yield for a question?
Representative Scott will yield. Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Representative Scott. Just a quick question as I'm reading this. Can you tell me if this would prohibit the Secretary of State from giving the data to the parties? Or is this just about auditing who the Secretary of State gets it to?
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This just makes sure that this doesn't change anything in his bill as far as who the data is shared with. It's just saying that we're going to make sure that it was only shared with those people, and that only lawful people that should have access to the data will have access to the data.
Representative Dowd.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification, and I actually think that's really good, and I would support this and recommend that members would vote for this. And Representative Dean, this seems like something you guys should want to. I don't see any harm in accepting this and putting it on the bill, just to make sure and double check that this information isn't given out later to people that it shouldn't have been given to. And I think, many of us served with Secretary of State Simon, but this also checks to, and nobody's questioning that he would do that, but this just kind of ensures kind of the trust but verify, and also the county auditors, and just making sure that this information doesn't get out to people that it shouldn't, and that it's only used for the purpose as designed in the bill. This one to me makes sense, and I would encourage members to vote for it.
Any further discussion to the amendment? Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as I've heard the dialogue continuing on here, I just want to draw members' attention, beginning on line 1.5. The ability of authorized individuals to enter, update, or access data must be limited through the use of role-based access control. Access codes. Actually, you know what? That is a mistype by the revisor's office. Role-based access control is what it should read, not codes. But it goes on, that correspond to the official duties. What RBAC is, the acronym for role-based access control, is a person's role determines their access to the information. So if you happen to have a role, let's say you're the chief financial officer, you don't need access to the marketing information, for example. Or if you work in the marketing department, you don't need access to accounts payable. So depending on your role, you will be afforded or revoked access. That's what those lines are stating. After that's determined, it goes on, beginning at the end of line 1.7. All queries and responses. So that's attempts to access. So that's the attempt to access and then the response from the system. And all actions in which the data are entered, updated, accessed, shared, or disseminated must be recorded in an audit trail. So after the role has been determined, which in turn defines the level of appropriate access to the information, then all attempts to touch the data, to read the data, to update the data, to delete the data are recorded. Again, the date time stamp of the attempt, the person who performed or attempted to perform the action, and then which action was performed. Those are the elements of the audit trail. Madam Speaker, would Representative Elkins yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Elkins, thank you for yielding. I know that you have had a long and successful career in databases. So obviously you are very familiar with audits and role-based access control. I just want to know, do you agree with my explanation here of role-based access control and then the audit trail is part one of my question, and part two of the question is, do you have any concern that having an audit trail, as we've heard, would in some manner reveal the ballots that were selected by individuals?
Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may need to have the last part of that repeated. Try one more time.
Representative Lucero.
I'll go one question at a time, Madam Speaker. The first question is, do you agree with my description of role-based access control and then my description of an audit trail and the elements therein?
Representative Elkins.
Thank you. The answer to the first question is yes. You did a nice job on that. The second one, I'm still not clear on. So be patient with me. Try one more time on the second question.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my second question is, we've heard concern from some members to vote, or urging members to vote against the Scott Amendment based on the words that were said, creating an audit trail would lead to the public disclosure of the ballot decisions by residents of Minnesota.
Representative Elkins.
Yeah, Representative Lucero, I'm not, so the keys to the kingdom on the Secretary of State's database, if we're talking about the Secretary of State's database itself, is actually in a database that isn't even connected to the internet. I don't see how anyone could get into it to make the kind of changes that you're trying to, or Representative Scott is trying to guard against with this amendment.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Elkins, you just described a system that we commonly refer to as maybe air-gapped, doesn't have access to the internet, and may or may not have access to a network at all, is a standalone system. But regardless, if a system has network connectivity or internet connectivity, there is still going to need to be personnel, staff, who touch the data, update the data, delete the data, access the data in multiple manners. That access of the data is the audit trail that would be produced. So, Madam Speaker and Representative Elkins, if he would yield for another question.
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
My question in part two of what I was asking is, we heard from some members their reasoning of their urging to vote against the Scott Amendment is because that it would reveal the audit trail that would be produced, the date, time stamp, the person who performed an action, and the action that was performed or attempted to be performed would somehow, in the creation of that audit trail, reveal the ballot choices of people that are voting. And I am suggesting that that is not correct information, and members can be assured that that won't happen and therefore vote green on the Scott Amendment. Do you concur with that?
Representative Elkins.
I don't see how the information would be exposed to anyone outside the people who are actually operating on the data within the Secretary of State's IT office.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From one IT professional to another, you are spot on. Members, you just heard agreement. If you are concerned, Representative Elkins just satisfied your concern because he and I are in agreement on this, that creating an audit trail will not reveal the ballot choices. Members, please vote green because it is a common practice to put an audit trail requirement on data-related bills. Thank you.
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And I'm not going to address any representative directly, but just so you all know that the individuals that have access to the SVR system, they're logged in. That information is kept when they're logged in. It's documented who actually audits that information. All users have to use multi-factor authentication. And reminder, in the bill, 10 days after the Office of Secretary of State actually provides the information to the party, the Office of Secretary of State needs to purge this information. So I think there's safeguards in here in the system that the Secretary of State, that we've designed in our office, of the Secretary of State over the past several years. And I think the security of the data is really, really critical. And as it enters into an audit trail, and believe me, I'm not the geeks that you guys are when it comes to IT. And in some ways, I feel good saying that. I think that this is one of those things that is redundant. It's not necessary. We don't have to do it. There's already the documentation of the individuals that have entered the data into the system. When they make any changes, all those things are documented. So we have that information. So again, I think this is additional information. And I'm going to let all you other IT people, you guys can hash this out, because I think that this is one of the things in this amendment is not necessary given what we currently do through the voters' data with the Secretary of State's office. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm just going to point out that we've had a little bit of bipartisan geekdom going on here this evening. Representative Elkins and Representative Lucero both agreed, Representative Dean, that this is a completely separate function that you're just miscategorizing it. The data trail that is going to be created has nothing to do with the file itself that you're saying that it's going to somehow miraculously mingle with. It doesn't. It's basically saying this person touched this data at this time and did these things, not inside of that file, in a separate file. So you're urging your side to say vote against it by your own side's admission is an inaccurate assessment. What Representative Scott is doing here is she's saying that we need to find a way to show to the voter of Minnesota that things are being handled correctly in a professional manner and that it's not being, I guess, somehow intermingled somewhere in the ether, as I think you believe. So members on the DFL side, Representative Elkins got it spot on, bang on. And Representative Lucero was absolutely correct. I'm adding my third nerd voice to the mix here. You're wrong, Representative Dean, and I appreciate your attempt to scuttle Representative Scott's amendment, but you're wrong, and your own side admitted it. So please, for the love of lutefisk, let's pass this bill. If you're truly trying to allay the fears of voters, do this, because it's going to provide somebody a way to say, I want to know that this data has been handled correctly by people, as Representative Lucero alluded to, that have the permissions to have access to this. They're an authorized user. So vote green if you're truly interested in providing a level of assurity to the voter that we're doing this right. You're going to go against the wishes of your chair. It might be a little bravery there, but vote yes on this amendment, because as Representative Elkins has admitted himself, Representative Lucero's concerns are right, yours are wrong. So thank you.
Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if my comments weren't completely clear, and I can't imagine why they wouldn't have been, the point I think I'm trying to make is I don't see a point to this. It seems to be solving a problem that does not exist.
Any further discussion to the A5 amendment? Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Dean yield to one more question, please?
Representative Dean will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Dean, how will the information go from the Secretary of State's office to the respective party designees?
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Like I mentioned, I'm not a huge tech or an IT geek, but I'm assuming there will be some type of file. I don't know exactly how that file will be transferred to the designee from a particular party. It could happen in a thumb drive. It could happen, in another way. One of the things that I think is important for folks to understand is if you participate in any election in the state of Minnesota, that data that you participated in becomes part of the system of the Secretary of State, which is public, which we all have access to. So what you're talking about doing is actually something that will add cost to the process of this. If there's going to be another process by which the Secretary of State's office will have to, be in compliance with this new audit trail that you're creating, I mean, in many ways, I don't have a fiscal note for that. I don't know what that would mean. I'm not going to say that this is out of order just because I don't know exactly what it might cost, but I'm guessing it could be significant cost as well. So, whether it's some type of file transfer, whether it's a secure FTP site or something like that, I'm sure that that's how that data will get transferred. And I think it would be wise for these parties that actually get this information, if they're worried about their liability of that information getting out public, I would encourage them that they should then purge that information once they've used it for what they need it for the requirements of the national party. So again, I would ask members to vote no on this amendment.
Representative Scott.
Well, I'm not going to beat the dead horse anymore here, but there has to be a way for the information to get from the Secretary of State's office to the party designees. And that's what needs to have the audit trail. That information we need to make sure that it goes to that one person in each party and only that one person. It's not going to get there by, I hope it's not going to get there by a flash drive. That's very insecure. I don't think it's getting there by the Pony Express. So I think it's going to be transferred electronically. We do this all the time with data practices bills. A fiscal note is never attached to something this simple. Members vote green.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't want to beat a dead horse either, but I have a little different concern. And rather than asking the author of the amendment to yield, I'm just going to kind of state it. If you look at the amendment, in paragraph C, it talks about the legislative auditor conducting an audit. And usually when we, there is a legislative audit commission. Several of us sit on that commission, and we try very hard to have the legislative auditor be responsive to what we ask through that process, where all the members, in fact, right now, are being asked to submit topics for audit. And usually we use that process to try to reserve the resources of the legislative auditor and make sure that they're responding to all of our priorities. So I'm not going to ask the author whether she talked to the legislative auditor. Sometimes they do respond to, obviously they try to accommodate members, but it's kind of a policy to try not to use legislation to send them here, there, and everywhere, which goes outside of that process. So I'm just going to make that comment, and I think unless the author has a good explanation for that, that would be my reason for voting no.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 56 ayes and 72 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 3068, as amended.
Third reading as amended. Discussion to the bill as amended. The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Would the author yield?
He will yield. Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Dean, I brought this up in both elections and at the other stops that I was subjected to it. But question for you. Was that out loud? I'm sorry. Representative Dean, the parties have not quite weighed in on whether they're going to accept the changes that you've proposed in your bill. So I have some concerns that delegates may not get seated at the respective national conventions. Can you address that issue? Because as of the last time we talked about it in committee, there had been no official word from on high. So if you really want to not send your delegates to the conventions, and I guess that's okay, but can you help us understand where the two parties, or four parties, I guess, are on whether or not they're going to acknowledge the changes that you may make in this bill?
Representative Dean.
Madam Speaker, Representative Nash, we have had conversations with the DFL State Party Chair, and he believes that there is no conflict with the National Party relative to this bill and the data that will be provided to them in the process. I did contact the state Republican chair, Jennifer Carnahan. I left her a message and did not hear back from her. And last time I checked, the only other choice that you all have on your ballot is if you write in someone other than the current president, Donald Trump. And relative to the other parties do not have a presidential national primary process, so this data will not be made available to them under this bill as it's been amended.
Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker. Sorry, I almost never do that. But in other words, your answer is no. You don't have any level of surety on that. So, I mean, I was opposed to this from the very beginning. If you look at the voting record, I voted against this idea. But if you're going to try to change this, and you haven't even heard definitively from your respective parties, why would you do something this reckless at this point? So, thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the bill's author yield to a question, please?
He will yield. Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Dean, your bill provides the data to the national party for verification of the election, but how does Minnesota state law apply to a party in Washington, D.C.? How do you plan on enforcing the law, and what are the penalties for not following it?
Representative Dean.
Madam Speaker and Representative Munson, actually, if you read the bill, it's to the party's designee. So that designee could be an individual in the state of Minnesota, possibly the state party chair. They actually have to sign a document, and they're required to request the information. The information doesn't just automatically go to them. They actually have to officially request it. They actually have to sign a contract about what that use of that document, of that particular data can be used for. So this isn't like being sent to Washington, D.C. It's actually to the local party designee.
Representative Munson.
Thank you, Representative Dean. I don't say that it has. I don't see in the bill where the data has to stay within the state. But I guess I'll take your word for it, much like the assumptions that were made of the bill in 2016. So, thank you, Representative Dean.
The member from Dakota. The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, when we passed this law in 2016, as I said, I gave a little bit of history there on the passage of the bill and the fact that there were a large number of us but not enough of us, obviously, to say, yeah, the party shouldn't be asking and collecting this data. It's too sensitive. And members, there's a lot of differences between this presidential primary and how it's being conducted and what the caucuses were. And I've heard that argument that, well, people were giving their information. They knew, what their party preference was by virtue of the fact that they showed up at a respective caucus. But this is a little bit different. This is a process that's being conducted by government. People's data is being collected by government, kept by government, shared by government. And that doesn't give people a real secure sense. One of the things that I know Representative Dean is doing this in good faith, and the Secretary of State is as well, saying that there's going to be these contracts, and once the data leaves the Secretary of State's office, it's going to be private data, and no one else can see it, and it's going to be purged. And the fact of the matter is, when data leaves government hands and goes to any outside party, we cease having control over it. Moreover, if someone feels that their information has been leaked or compromised in some way, the burden of proof is on them. They have to have the finances to bring a case and to have it investigated. And I understand those forensic, those technical IT technical forensic investigations are not cheap. So basically, we're saying that a person's going to be just kind of on their own. If their data gets out, their data gets out. That's the way it goes. So members, I think that this is an issue where we need to listen to the public and we need to pivot. And we need to go back and say either we need to go back to the caucus system for the presidential straw poll, or we just need to say that we're not going to collect this data from people. I was still hearing from people yesterday calling me on the phone. And as far as the opt-out the opt-out option, again, I know that's done in good faith, but I really don't know that many people are going to know about that, and they're going to have, after an election like this, they're going to call or contact the Secretary of State's office on a website and fill out a form to have their information destroyed or to have themselves opt out of it. So I think this is a lot of feel-good language that really in the end is not going to make any difference to someone that feels that their information is out there and they've been harmed by it. So I encourage a no vote on this bill. Thank you, members.
The member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So this is an issue that I think has been completely blown out of proportion. This bill isn't necessary. The press has been loving this issue and talking about people's data and their privacy. This is different. I know it's a little confusing because we haven't done primaries here a lot in the past. We made a decision in 2016 that we wanted to, in this election, do a presidential primary. We did it before we knew whether there was going to be an incumbent Republican or an incumbent Democrat. So nobody knew if there was going to be some advantage to having more data because there was a contested primary or not. The reason that we did this is because we wanted more people to have the opportunity to participate in the party process that is a primary, okay? I said it very specifically that way. This is not an election. Nobody's getting elected. You're not going in to vote for somebody and that person's going to walk out the winner and they get elected. This is not an election, okay? This is also not a primary like your primary, right? Where you're winning the right to be on a ballot, which is an official process here in the state of Minnesota. This isn't a state primary. This is a presidential primary, which is a party process. When you go to the polls, you're not participating in an election, and you're not voting for somebody who's going to win that election, right? This is different. This is like when you go to caucuses, okay? So when you show up at your polling place, or if you voted early, you are participating in the Republican primary, or you're participating in the Democrat primary. Seems only right that they should know who participated in their primary, right? If you show up at caucuses, many of us did it last night, you sign up on the little sheet, they know you participated in their process. And they're the only ones who are going to get that information. We don't need this bill, and when people call you, simply say, if you're afraid and you don't want people to know that you're a Republican or that you're a Democrat, then maybe you shouldn't participate in a party process, because that's a dead giveaway. Okay, and that's perfectly fine, right? You don't need to participate. In the Republican primary, it's uncontested, right? President Trump's going to win the Republican primary in Minnesota. On the Democrat side, what is there, 5 or 6 candidates in? And all that's going to do is determine Minnesota's preference. We used to do it at a straw poll at the caucuses, which was non-binding. This one is a party process, so the party will look at the results and they will say, based on these results, we're going to give our delegates at the national convention to this breakdown of candidates. Maybe one gets them all. I don't know how the Democratic Party does it. You don't have to participate in that process, right? If you don't want to be partisan, you do not have to be. But this is a party process. It's not an election. I'm very happy to go. Also, it does not tell anybody that you are a Republican or a Democrat. I assume that there will be Republicans that go to the polling place to participate in the Democrat primary because they think voting for candidate X, Y, or Z might be the best candidate for their person to run against, right? All it's going to tell the parties is that on that day, you participated in the Democrat primary or you participated in the Republican primary. I think this whole thing is a whole lot to do about nothing. And if you are that concerned, or your constituents are that concerned that they don't want to be partisan, it's a good idea then not to participate in a partisan process, like the Republican primary or the Democrat primary. I think when I explain it this way, people kind of realize, oh yeah, this isn't an election. And it's a little confusing because we're doing it at the polling place so that more people can participate. And instead of caucuses at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night, they can show up during the regular hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever the hours are. Don't use those as your, I don't know what they are. I think that's what they are, right? So more people can participate if they choose to, right? But if we get rid of this and go back to the caucus system for our presidential straw poll, that's non-binding. I guess the parties can have rules that say it is binding, maybe. But ours has been non-binding. But when you show up at caucuses, you're going to write your name down and the party's going to know you were there. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's a whole lot to do about nothing. By the way, the last time we had a primary in the state of Minnesota, and people forget because it's been a while, 1992, and in that primary, you chose your ballot and the party found out which ballot you get. So we have done it this way before, and by the way, in other states, this is how they do it. So we don't have to have a primary if you don't want one, but it only makes sense that the parties should know who participates in their primary. A whole lot to do about nothing. Vote against this and let's stick with current law.
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. If we don't pass this bill, it's not going to be as it was before. All major parties will get this information of those individuals that voted. And, you know, I mean, I've had a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of concern from individuals to do something to make this data more secure. You know, there are many clergy members that vote in the party process, this election, that information now, if we don't pass this bill, would be available to anybody in the public, at least anybody in the public, that any of the major parties could do anything they want with this information if we don't pass this bill. So although, you know, Minority Leader Daudt says that this doesn't make a difference, it makes a huge difference. Let's not kid ourselves that what we're trying to fix was not the ideal thing. And it was not the ideal thing for a few reasons, not because of just the vote we took in 2016, but also because the vote that was, in many ways, forced upon us in 2019 that would make this information available to all major parties. So again, this bill does a few simple things. It makes the Secretary of State responsible to provide this information to the major parties, and with the amendments that we've adopted, will only be to those parties in which the individual selected their ballot for. So what this bill does is exactly what Speaker Daudt says. It actually changes it. And I mean, you know, and beyond that, it really puts a lot of onerous on those parties to make sure that they're keeping the data that they receive for their verification to actually secure that data. You know, there's a requirement by the parties of the recordation in order for those delegates to be seated. And again, while I have not received any direct mail or direct, you know, confirmation, all the major parties had received this information from this, and none of them have objected or raised any concerns about what this means for us meeting their requirements for recordation. And lastly, this bill allows those individuals to opt out of their data actually being included as part of that data set, should they choose. Again, there are many individuals that work for cities. There are many individuals that work for the state. I would speak exactly to our nonpartisan research which we all know do incredible jobs for us. And I think there's some fear from those individuals that the disclosure of that information might jeopardize their ability to do the job that they do for us. And I think that many of you on the other side of the aisle would agree that our nonpartisan staff is an exemplary. They provide the same sort of resources to each of us. So I think this is a way that we solve the problem of what's been created over the past few years relative to the presidential national primary. And I would just encourage all members to vote green on House File 3068 as amended. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I would urge a green vote. Unlike the insulin bill we debated earlier tonight, this is not a life or death issue, although there were moments during the interchange with Representative Lucero and Elkins where it felt like it was kind of close. It is still important. And I think it's a peculiar argument that we want to encourage people not to participate in the primary selection process for either major political party as a way to protect them from data. This is a pretty simple, straightforward approach to solving a problem that we've created. The voters would like to participate. They don't want to have their data about party preference exposed. We've heard from a lot of our own constituents about this. It's a simple, straightforward approach to make this process work a little bit better, and it seems to me that we should be able to demonstrate to the people who elected us that we are capable of listening to them and doing our jobs in a basic way. And if all else fails, we can at least show the Minnesota Senate how to do that, and that feels good for us too. So I would urge a green vote.
The clerk will take the roll. The clerk, have all members voted who would like to vote? The clerk will close the roll. There being 72 ayes and 55 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to.